So you will start by getting the two pieces of fabric that you will be attaching to one another with the zipper that will be enclosed with the zipper. And you should have a pattern placement marking on your pattern. You'll see mine is with a notch here that indicates where the zipper will be ending on the garment. So I am sewing the Gabriella pajama suit right now. So mine actually ends at a crotch curve here. So go ahead and get your pattern pieces right sides together, matched up at the notch in the base, and sew a regular stitch from the notch down to the bottom, making sure to back stitch both at the top and the bottom so that the stitch is locked into place. So I have gone ahead and done that to save you guys some time from watching me do such a basic step. And once you have them attached with each other up to your notch, go ahead and press your seam open flat. And then you should be at this point in your construction. Now we're going to grab our zipper. So remember, an invisible zipper has the teeth on the back side, not the front side, which is different from a traditional zipper. And what we're going to do is take the garment and place it so that right sides are up here. So once again, you'll see that this is where my notch was marked, so it is sewn up to this point, but the rest is all left raw. And I'm going to start by taking my zipper. This is facing upwards. So this is the way that the zipper will be facing when it is finished, correct? So with that in mind, we want to go ahead and flip it so that it is upside down. I'm going to go ahead and open the zipper here and align the top of the zipper tape right here to the raw edge of my garment. So I'll go ahead and zoom in for you to see. We want it to have that extra space at the top for our seam allowance to attach either a hood or a collar at that point. So I'm going to go ahead and line up my zipper tape like I showed you at the top here, and with the edge of the tape along the edge of my garment. I'm going to go ahead and pin that all the way down to my notch. Now we're going to go ahead and take this over to the sewing machine and go ahead and use a straight stitch to sew right next to your zipper teeth all the way down as far as you can to the bottom here. So obviously some of this is going to be hanging out on the front here, and obviously you do not want to be sewing onto the front side of your garment. You're just going to take this down as far as you can along the tape here to the bottom. You should be able to make it to the bottom of the zipper stop. And of course, use a zipper foot. You may also use an invisible zipper foot. If you have one, it does make the job a little bit easier. So let's head on over to the sewing machine and do that. Okay, so I have my one side attached, sewn onto this side. So you'll see that our end is kind of sticking off the bottom here. I have just gone ahead and sewn this up. So the zipper is shut. And why we want to do this is because with the Gabriella pajama suit, I have a kangaroo pocket here. And we want to make sure that this matches up on both sides. So how I'm going to do that is I'm marking where the top of my pocket is on the other side of my tape. So I'm going to go ahead and take this and just draw a little mark on the other side of my tape. You can see that little mark I drew there. So now I know when I align up my tape with this side, I need that marking to align up with the top side of this side of the pocket. So now that I have that marked, I'm going to go ahead and unzip this and then repeat what we did for this side. Flip over my zipper so that now the teeth are along the right edge here, and then go along the raw edge of this side and pin it into place, making sure that it's starting. Use it to compare to this side. Make sure they're starting at the same point on the zipper tape, and then use that mark that we put down here, this blue mark right here. Use my little marking here and make sure that that is aligned with the top of the kangaroo pocket. So let's go ahead and pin that, and then I'll take it over to my sewing machine and sew alongside the teeth just like I did the other side. All right, now just like the other side, let's go ahead and take this over to the sewing machine and use a straight stitch with your zipper or invisible zipper foot, and go ahead and sew right along the edge of your teeth all the way down, as far down into here as you can. Okay, so this is what your zipper should look like at this point. Everything should be aligned up nicely. So now we're gonna go ahead over into a top stitching step here, because if your garment is being pulled on, this is what you're gonna see. You're gonna see the zipper coming through. This is supposed to be an invisible zipper. So we wanna top stitch this down so that the fabric stays together like this. Before I get into that, I wanna talk about doing a facing. I have a facing here. I want to do a facing on mine. If you are not sure what a facing is, it's basically just going to be sitting on the back side like so. It's going to cover up your zipper so that the zipper's not up against your skin. So if you are doing a facing, first thing you're going to do is prep your facing. Your pattern should give you instructions for that. And what we're going to do is align it to the top here, down by whatever your seam allowance is, because we don't want it to get cut off as you're sewing on a neckline, a neckband, a hood, or anything like that. So put it down by whatever your seam allowance is, and then we're going to pin it to the zipper tape and the seam allowance on the bodice. So if I were to zoom in here for you to see better, you'll notice it is not pinned to the body itself, okay? It is only pinned to the zipper tape and the seam allowance right here. And we're gonna go ahead and pin that all the way down. All right, now that the facing is pinned to the side here, we're gonna go ahead and sew these 4 layers together. So 2 layers of facing, 1 layer of zipper tape, and then the seam allowance of the body here. I'm going to use a finishing stitch. That's either your serger, a zigzag, an overcast stitch, one of those stitches to go ahead and attach all of these together along here. It's going to be a very narrow stitch, only a 1/4 of an inch about, just enough to keep these together so that they're nice and finished on the edge, and then to keep our facing from shifting around as we do our top stitching. Okay, so now that these are attached here, I want to point out, if you're doing facing with me, if you just did that step with me, this is what it should look like from the front side. So we'll have the facing sticking out back here, but nothing along the front was sewn together when we did that. So now we're going to go ahead and top stitch. Whether you did the facing or not, everybody should be top stitching, because when you wear your garment, you don't want any pulling to show off the tiny amount of zipper that can. from any pulling here. So how we're going to top stitch is we will be top stitching down about 1/4 inch in, down along the side all the way to the bottom, then you'll come across and then top stitch back along the other side. Couple things to note. When you're doing this, make sure that the fabric is neither being pulled flat like this or bunched up like that. We don't want any bubbles either. We just want it to be naturally flat. Also, if you have sewn on the optional facing, we obviously do not want to sew through onto this side of the facing, otherwise we would not be able to open up our zipper. So when you are doing your top stitching, if you have sewn in a facing, you will start by sewing straight down this side here. That is the side with the raw edges that we just sewed together, okay? Not the finished edge here. So you will sew along this side here, come down to the bottom, stitch across, and then before you start heading up this direction, I want you to make sure and fold your facing out of the way. Make sure that when you're going along up the other side, that it has just been hand pressed out of the way. You can even use some pins to pin it out of the way. It's very important that you don't top stitch through onto this side of the facing. So this is our last step, guys. Let's take it over to the sewing machine and go ahead and give it this top stitch, and we will be done.